At first, the room sounded like any other congressional hearing. Papers shuffled, cameras hummed softly, and lawmakers leaned back in their chairs waiting for their turn to speak. It was expected to be predictable, another long day of political talking points most people would forget by the evening. But then Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, and the entire atmosphere shifted. You could feel it before she even spoke. It was the kind of moment when people stop checking their phones and start paying attention, because sometimes in Washington, one question can change everything. The hearing had already been tense. Lawmakers argued over cultural issues, political priorities, and the kinds of topics that often dominate headlines. Voices had been raised, accusations exchanged, and members of the committee were clearly trying to score political points. Then Crockett calmly adjusted her microphone. Her voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Her confidence immediately slowed the room. She began with a simple sentence, "Let me make sure I understand." That single phrase forced lawmakers to pause. She carefully repeated earlier arguments in plain language, not mocking or interrupting, just laying them out clearly so everyone could hear them again. Then she introduced a phrase that would quickly spread across media and social platforms. Slowly and deliberately, she said, "Trump or trans." She didn't shout it. She didn't dramatize it. But the words cut through the noise of the hearing. Crockett explained that she believed political debates were increasingly being reduced to emotional cultural arguments while major issues affecting everyday Americans were being pushed aside. She pointed to concerns families discuss around kitchen tables: the economy, healthcare costs, public safety, and job stability. The chamber grew noticeably quieter as she spoke. One lawmaker attempted to interrupt, but Crockett remained steady, continuing her remarks with calm control. She suggested that political strategy often relies on distraction, that focusing voters on emotional conflicts can prevent deeper conversations about policy results. Her delivery was precise and measured, like someone presenting evidence step by step. Then she asked the question that would define the moment: if leaders keep asking Americans to choose between cultural outrage and real policy solutions, what problems actually get solved? No one immediately responded. The silence inside the chamber said more than any answer could have. The hearing attempted to move forward, but the mood had already changed. Lawmakers whispered among themselves while staffers quickly typed notes. Outside the hearing room, clips of the exchange were already spreading across social media. Some viewers praised her question as honest and direct. Others criticized it as political messaging, but nearly everyone agreed on one thing: the moment was unforgettable. Soon after, a Republican committee member pushed back strongly. He argued that cultural debates were central to the country's identity and values. His tone grew sharper as he defended the importance of those issues. Crockett waited patiently for him to finish before responding. When she spoke again, her tone remained calm. She acknowledged that cultural issues matter to many Americans, but questioned whether those debates were sometimes used to avoid responsibility for governing. She reminded the committee that hearings were meant to ensure government accountability, improving roads, schools, public safety, and economic stability. Then she delivered another memorable line: "Families," she said, "don't sit at their kitchen tables arguing about political slogans. They talk about bills and daily responsibilities." The statement landed heavily across the room. The debate intensified as another lawmaker accused Crockett of minimizing serious concerns. She responded by agreeing that difficult topics should be discussed, but added that discussing issues isn't the same as solving them. She warned that constant political outrage can exhaust voters and distract from meaningful progress. For several seconds, no one spoke. The room sat in an uncomfortable but powerful silence. As the hearing continued, lawmakers returned to technical policy discussions, but the energy never fully reset. Even witnesses and committee members seemed more cautious with their words, aware that millions of people were now watching online. Eventually, another member suggested that both sides shared legitimate concerns and encouraged the committee to refocus on practical solutions. For a brief moment, the room felt less combative. Near the end of the hearing, members were offered a final opportunity to speak. Crockett pressed her microphone button once more. The room grew still again. She explained that congressional hearings should help Americans understand how their government serves them, not divide them or create confusion. She spoke about declining public trust in political institutions and warned that when debates turn into performances instead of problem-solving, citizens notice the difference. She emphasized that disagreements in democracy are normal and necessary. But she reminded the committee that Americans expect progress, not just arguments. She referenced the viral phrase "one last time," not as criticism, but as an example of how political conversations can become oversimplified. Crockett said governing requires patience, cooperation, and attention to complex problems. Leadership, she concluded, should be measured by what improves after debates end, not how loudly they are argued. When she finished speaking, the room fell into a reflective silence. The chairperson delivered closing remarks, and the hearing officially adjourned. Lawmakers gathered their papers while reporters rushed toward the hallway exits. Crockett calmly organized her documents and briefly spoke with colleagues before walking toward waiting journalists. When asked about her comments, she responded simply that Americans deserve leaders focused on solving real problems and that citizens are capable of caring about multiple issues at once. By evening, the hearing had become national news. Television networks replayed the exchange repeatedly, each offering different interpretations of what it meant for modern politics. Supporters described it as a call for accountability. Critics called it strategic messaging. Across the country, people debated the moment in living rooms, online discussions, and community conversations. The following morning, analysts and political strategists continued discussing whether cultural debates drive voter engagement more than policy discussions. Meanwhile, inside Congress, daily government work continued quietly. Legislation reviews, committee meetings, and conversations with constituents. Crockett's office released a short statement emphasizing her focus on economic stability, public safety, and protecting democratic institutions. Like many political moments, the viral exchange eventually faded from daily headlines. New debates replaced old ones, and new stories captured public attention. But the hearing left behind a lingering question, not just for lawmakers, but for voters as well. What should leadership focus on when cameras are watching, and what should it focus on when they are not? Because sometimes the most powerful moment in politics isn't the loudest speech or longest debate. Sometimes, it's a calm voice asking the right question at exactly the right time. And on that day, inside a congressional hearing room, Jasmine Crockett did exactly that.